Each and every Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Keep it locked. It's the crowd pleaser, baby. You know how we do. We'll see you on the air. Peace.
You're listening to Bolsa 360 show on iLIVE Radio, giving you the best Brazilian music. Groove, soul, funk, house, anything Brazilian. Bolsa 360 on iLIVE Radio.
It's going down on Spinner. Hey, what's up, people? It's your boy Stokes the MC telling you to tune in to Spinner every Sunday from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. only on iLiveRadio.com. Spinner features fresh themes weekly revolving around music, culture, art, and current events. Interviews with some of your favorite international and homegrown talent, as well as ongoing informative series like Legends and Icons and the Save 10 Challenge. So tell a friend and tune in this Sunday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. to Spinner, hosted by yours truly, Stokes the MC, only on iLive Radio. And until then, be awesome to somebody.
You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Patrick O. Morris Show, and I'm your host, Patrick O. Morris. Today's show is going to be completely unscripted.
And I like that.
It's going to be completely unscripted. I'm joined in the studio with, we're going to date ourselves if I say how long this has been, but we've known each other for a minute. Dr. Vibe is in the studio today. What's up, man?
Everything is up. It is a blessing. I'm blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem to be here.
You got these sayings that I'm just like, where do you get this stuff? Well, you want to say that again?
Blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem.
A magnet for miracle and a solution for someone's problems.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good way to start it off today.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to talk. You're totally exposed, and this is unscripted, and you have no idea what we're going to talk about today. But
just like my show. So I'm used to it.
Let's start off by talking a little bit about your show.
Okay.
Like, what, for those who are listening who may not have heard of Dr. Vibe, but like, who the heck is Dr. Vibe?
Well, I've been hosting an award-winning. I don't do shows. I do conversations. Mm-hmm. So since October 2009 online. Now I'm going to date myself a little bit. The first conversation I had on my online show was about Michael Vick and the dogs.
Oh.
That's the first conversation I had. So since then, back in the day, I was just doing audio, and now a lot of the conversations I do are webcam interviews with individuals all around the world. I've done over 1,500 conversations with people all around the world.
Damn.
And I'm blessed to have, I guess, syndication on different platforms in the United States, like thegoodmenproject.com, which is one of the most viewed sites in the world for men. The site itself gets 3 million unique visitors a month and 5 million unique page views a month, and I'm their only show that's allowed to put any content of my show. Is the only one they say put whatever you want on, and also I have syndication out of a.
So you could say whatever you want. Nobody's going to stop you.
No, well,
it'd be too late.
It'd be too late. But I know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But they're asking for more content from me, and that status has been going on for now the last 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. So I, as a black man I live in Scarborough. I'm the only basically, and I do interviews for them too. Mm-hmm. So I am, as a black man, am the face of that site, and I also have distribution out of a online site called WJMS Radio out of New York, which I help a young African-American lady build, and I do stuff for her too. But there's other areas, but I don't want to go on too long because we only have probably about 48 minutes.
So with you've been doing this for a few years, obviously, yep. And there's been a lot of change.
Absolutely.
In society, in the world, in perceptions, in a whole lot of stuff. So, from Michael Vick and the dogs thing, which I never fully understand.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, exactly.
Like why it was such what it was.
Yeah.
Up to, Obama, Trump, a lot of stuff that's happened here in Canada as well.
Sure.
And you've had a gazillion conversations on so many different topics.
Yeah.
So over the years, what would you say was the most...
Everyone gives me this
Everybody
question.
gives you this question?
Everyone says, they're like, what's the one highlight? Or there isn't one.
No, I'm not even talking about a highlight. I'm just curious, was there a conversation that you had that you kind of walked away from it saying, holy cow, I completely had that wrong going in?
No. You know why? Because I don't I don't script my questions ahead of time. So I let the person or persons I give them a comfortable environment to share whatever they want. Most people that come on the conversation for the first time say, oh, what are we going to talk about? I said, no, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Because I want them to be comfortable and share their story. So I'm not really caught off guard with the life I've led offline, and also the life I hear people share with me online and what goes on in the world today. Something that just jumps out of off the top of my head. A number of years ago, I did an interview with a performer, and after I spoke with the lady that was handling her, PR person,
Yeah.
and we'd only spoken for about 5 minutes beforehand, and we began chatting. And I said, you know what? Why don't you come on the show? She goes, well, I don't have anything to share about it. And we began chatting some more. She eventually came on the show and talked about how she was molested by family members
Oh, wow. Okay.
between 10 and 15 years old. And that was one of those moments, because here's someone you don't know that's willing to share their story
Yeah.
with an audience and with someone they don't really know. So that's one that sticks out. And that happened a number of years ago.
Now, being able to create an environment
Yep.
that is conducive to that kind of a conversation is not an easy feat.
No.
You know, I remember, way back in Black Habits days.
Yes, Black Habits.
Sitting in a room you're sitting in a room with like 50, 100 people, and being able to create an environment that people could sit down and say, sometimes for the first time, to admit to the fact that some of these things has happened to them and kind of what they've learned out of that. How do you go about creating that for your guests when they come on your show, to be able for them to feel comfortable in a safe space with just, it's not just you and them, it's you and them and the whole world.
Yeah, the whole world, right? I think, and let me just take a moment, kudos to the work you've done over the years. And I'm glad,
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I really appreciate that Patrick is in this space, because as we were just talking about before we came on live, one of the reasons I did this was to see other people, especially black men, do this. So that's one of my main driving forces to do this, is to have more black men especially host these type of conversations to make sure that we get as much opportunity to control our narrative. So that's very important. So Patrick started this with a group of individuals a number of years ago with Black Habits. So I want to give kudos to him and those gentlemen, because what their efforts should not be and never be forgotten. So make sure when you see them, you hail them up, as you like to say.
There you go. Big shout out to Bentley and Colin and Jackie and Ricardo.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
All right.
Enough
about me.
Okay, so the environment.
It's not you today.
Well, no problem. It's all good. One of the things I'm blessed with, I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Persistent and consistent. Then if someone's coming on for the first time, what I like to do, and I'll be totally transparent here, I'll see something they've done online, written an article, and say, hey, really enjoyed your article. If you're interested, I'd love you to come on the show. That's all I do. Either they're going to say yes or no. If they say yes, that's great. If they say no, it's great, because I'm still going to keep on going.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do with them is, if they want, we have a conversation on the phone, get a chance to know each other a little bit, and say, hey, what do you want to talk about? And they say this, this, and this, and we just make it happen. And as I said, I do conversations, so I'd say I've done over 1,500, maybe 20. I've had to really prep for. People say, oh, I want to ask this, 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 and this. And as you know, doing this, most of the time when there's a format, 50% of the time it never gets followed. There's things that derail, but that's good. At least, you want to make them feel comfortable and I say to them, I'm here to make you look good.
You ever end up with the diva, the person would be like, so like I've had a few people that I've gotten stuff from them. They're like, okay, so you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, and, and I'm like, but I'm talking about how's that going to work? Because the stuff that we need to talk about is the stuff that you're telling me you don't want to talk about. And it's like and then they come on. And then they start talking about the stuff that they tell you not to ask them about.
But see, and those things happen. And isn't it interesting that something I've learned, I'm sure you learned about, the thing that most people like to do is talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So once they get talking about themselves, you're just along for the ride. As I tell people that come on the conversation, I'm here to steer the ship. You're driving the ship. right? The conversation's about you. It's not about me. If people just wanted to hear me, I would have stopped doing shows a long time ago, right? So it's all about
things
them.
to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm a boring guy, So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. So with the Dr. Vibe show, you host conversations on various different topics.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Trump has probably come up a couple times, and
It has. Just a little asterisk, 75% of my audience is from the U.S.
Okay.
So,
all right, so we'll be nice to them today. We won't say anything bad about them.
No, they want to move up here. They've been asking if I got extra rooms in my house. Right? I said, come on up. Here's the rent. Rent's this much. Utilities.
I'm sure that it's a long border. There's got to be some parts that are not guarded. Or
well, shut them down, right? This is unscripted, as you can tell.
What are some of the things that you find, aside from wanting to find out if you have a spare bedroom? What are some of the things that keeps coming up from your audience?
A lot of things that coming up is that there's afraid. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people think that it's going to really become a law and order place, a real hardcore law and order place.
Back to the old Wild West days.
Back to the old Wild West, because a lot of African Americans are watching what that government is doing with illegal immigrants, and they're saying, okay, after they're done with that, who's next? And again, it gets heightened the other day after Ben Carson's statements.
Oh yes, the
immigrants,
and the bottom of ships against their will.
And African Americans are saying, okay, how come no one in Trump's party had something to say about that? I said, they're not going to, because they don't care. That's the person he put in there. That's what he wants. That's his mindset. I'm talking blacks in general, we've not done as good a job as we could with ourselves. And if we don't take ourselves seriously, why do we expect people who are not black to take us seriously?
Okay, so there's a couple school of thoughts on this, right? Yeah. And so here in Canada, it's I don't want to sort of offend anybody, but there are some people who follow very closely the American narrative here in Canada, yelling and screaming that the building's burning down.
Okay.
The same way it is in the U.S.
Yep.
And then there's others saying, well, hold on a second here. This is Canada. Things are different here. And the black experience in Canada is different than what it is in the U.S. And a lot of times people will say, well, you know what, at least we don't live in the U.S. It's Canada, it's better here. It's not as bad as it is in the U.S. And a lot of times conversations you have with blacks in Canada tend to define ourselves based on what's going on south of the 49th parallel.
Right.
How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? There's a whole lot in there,
How long do you have? It's interesting because black experience in Canada, yes, in some ways it is different because our heritage, a lot of it is from Caribbean, etc. Now even if it's now changed. There's a large influx of Africans.
Yes.
I think that we should not, as a people, think that none of it goes on here. It's just hidden better. And we are not, as a people, reacting as aggressively as they are in the United States. But even right now in the United States, I asked a conversation we had in Black History Month to some gentlemen the other day, do you feel like some blacks have given up?
Yeah.
And I'm getting that feeling that more and more blacks in Canada, the United States, have just given up. Like, they're not voting. They don't care. They just say, that's the way it is, etc. But I'm disappointed because our forefathers and foremothers would have been in people's faces about this. And look what they've done just to get us here. I think we're doing them shame by not doing nothing. We need to have many dialogues within our communities. And if we don't start speaking with each other, we're in a critical time. And I just say, if we don't work together, we won't win together. That means the blacks that are here and the blacks that are there, because when we go on the street, a lot of times we're perceived to be the same.
So with the differences within Canada and the U.S.,
yes,
do we risk anything by approaching the situation in a heightened state of, call it aggression, as it often is in the U.S., doing that here in Canada, considering the environment is a little different?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't approach it aggressively, but I think we've got to think before we act, and we got to know where the battle is. Yes, we can approach it aggressively. We just have to know the game. We got to know our game. We got to know our own community. I think there's nothing wrong with aggressive as long as you know what the possible repercussions are. But right now, I'm more focused on what's going on in our. I don't even like to say the black community because I need a definition of what the black community is. Right? What is
Because
that?
The African experience is very different than the Caribbean experience, which is very different from
Exactly.
the American experience.
And
You know.
if we all get in the same room, can we get along?
Yeah.
Right? Because, again, if you are not black and you see, okay, where's the black community? And if we can't show, now, I'm not saying all of us have to be like lovey-dovey all the time, but let's show some semblance that there is something we're working towards because we're better somewhat united than we are somewhat apart.
Do you think it's so much a black-white issue?
No.
Versus a class issue or a minority majority issue? Because when you look at things, that happens within, whether you want to say the black community or the Aboriginal community,
Right.
or a lot of the immigrant community, or the poor and disenfranchised communities, there are a lot of similarities.
There's two schools of thought on that. There are the class thing saying that more and more people are going without. And the color of going without is different. 50 years ago, it was people that looked like you and I that were going without. Now it's gotten wider. But then there's another thought with a number of African Americans saying, look, if we're going to have challenges, are these people going to support us? A perfect example was with the Women's March that happened on Washington about a month or so ago, right?
Yeah.
I was speaking with an African American woman. She said, I'm not going to protest. I go, why? She says, if I go to their protests, will they come to my protests? So there's a thought saying, if you're not going to help me, why should I help you?
Yeah.
So there's a whole circle. Like I said, we could do like a whole day iLive seminar. We do an iLive special on this whole day, and I would bring in some Americans who could speak about it more better than I could. But
So Elena Line is saying that we need to sort of fix our community before we start pointing
and
fingers.
I fully agree with that comment.
So which I agree with that comment too. But there's so many nuts and bolts within that,
yeah.
right? And there's so many. So we could look within how, and you sort of mentioned it, how fractured the quote unquote black community is. But on a bigger scale, this is just me. I'm just rambling. Just one guy.
POM's on the go.
Just one guy.
POM's on the go.
One voice crying in the wilderness, so to speak. But I think that I personally think that we do ourselves a disservice when we look at it solely from this is a black community issue.
No, it's bigger.
Because it's bigger than just that. Because when it just taking Canada into account, when we look at the way that the Aboriginal community is treated within the prison systems, within across the board,
Absolutely.
the number of boil water advisories that are within communities and the living conditions. I remember driving to it's a small county. It's called Hanneman County. It's like west of Hamilton, and I was driving by, and on one side of the road there were these homes that are probably 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. I was like, wow, those are really nice houses. And then as I'm going down, there's a river beside the highway, and I look on the other side of the highway and I see these shacks, and I'm like, what the heck are those? And then I realize that there's a big sign saying that this is a reserve, right? It's an Indian reserve, and I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, what the hell? These are the conditions that these people are being forced to live in. And, from again, this, my theology at this moment in my time, tomorrow it might change.
Absolutely.
Right? But I think the more that we, the Aboriginal community focuses on pushing their agenda, and the black community focuses on pushing their agenda, and the Muslims focus on pushing their agenda, and everybody's sort of pushing their agenda as opposed to everybody kind of coming together and saying, hey, hold on a second here. This entire system
is messed up.
And needs to be shifted. Then it's very easy it's just, those Black Lives Matter guys being overly emotional. It's just the Aboriginals whining for more money. It's just, the Muslims are complaining about wanting Sharia law or something, right? It's very easy to sort of dismiss the masses as opposed to addressing the entire issue, which, yes, the Black community, I'm part of it. I like to kid with people and say, I'm not black, I'm honey golden.
Can we buy you on shelf? Sound like put you on syrup.
I'm honey golden,
pancakes.
baby.
All right,
Don't
pancakes,
get it twisted.
Pancakes, waffles, chicken and waffles, honey golden.
Yeah. But that's even something. Who defines the fact that I'm black? Because I'm a plethora of things. I'm very well mixed, shaken and stirred. I'm very well mixed. So when I stop and I say, okay, if I identify myself as black, then I'm doing a disservice to other parts of me. And if I was to stand and identify me as anything other than black, then I'm going to be doing myself a disservice about being black as well. But there's strength in all of who I am. And so as long as we continue to segregate ourselves along these lines, as opposed to looking and seeing the humanity in each person first, we're going to continue to have these struggles. And I don't think it'll ever go away as long as we keep dividing.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that are running through my mind. I'll ask you a quick question first. Since we met each other many years ago, how do you feel this issue has stayed the same, progressed, or regressed?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think there's a lot more awareness today in terms of a lot more awareness, a lot more because there's a lot more visibility, and there are a lot more lights that's being shine, whatever.
Shine. Yeah.
There you go. You get what I'm saying. In society on these issues. However, in order for meaningful and true change to really kind of happen, there needs to be more of a, and you said this before when you said that there needs to be, it can't be an emotional response to what's happening. And I find that a lot of the protests that are happening can easily be dismissed as an emotional response. And so for me, I always say, where are the articulate leaders? Or not even just a leader, but somebody who is able to sort of stand up articulately and say, and speak to those particular issues in a manner that society has to sort of stop and recognize. It's very easy when there is this emotional outburst, this emotional response for the stereotypical way of addressing that, or somebody seeing somebody as that stereotypical, the angry black woman, the angry black man.
Person. Yeah, exactly.
They're just disgruntled youth, or whatever the terminologies they want to utilize, right? But the ability to be able to sort of stand from a place of some authority and articulate the message. And I'll give you an example, okay? So I got my phone bill, right? And there was $319 in data charges.
Wow.
That on the phone that my 13-year-old uses. Okay. So I'm like, wait a second, this is not right. So I called them up, my phone company, and I say, I go, why is there this charge? I said, well, your son used 5 gigs.
Okay.
So $319 for 5 gigs of data.
Wow.
So I said, okay. I go, I know when I reach my data limit, I get a text message saying, you've reached 95%. Yeah. If you want to proceed,
get notification.
If you want to proceed, there's going to be extra charges. Blah 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 blah.
Yep.
I said, well, I didn't get this notification. And she goes, oh, we sent it to that phone. So I said, well, hold on a second. Who owns the account? She says, well, you do. I said, are there any other names on the account for people who are allowed to make changes to my account for extra charges or anything? She says, no. said, so why would you send the message to that phone and not to my phone, which is the primary on this account?
Yeah.
I go, logically speaking, if anybody's going to be able to make this approval, it should be me, right? Because I own the account. She says, yeah. So I said, so explain to me why it is that you're allowing somebody who has no authority to make a change to my account. Are you telling me that your company allows strangers to make changes on people's accounts? She says, well, no, you gave that phone to that person to use. I said, yes, I did. But I didn't give them permission to make changes. You did.
So,
and she kind of stopped, and she's like, well,
ding, 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 ding,
and I said, well, clearly there's a loophole here somewhere. I said, I'm not mad at you, but understand that your system, your process in place is incorrect. So what are you going to do about that? She's like, well, she started to say the same spiel again. Is, we send it to that phone. I said, I understand that. But you do realize that process doesn't make sense, right?
Okay.
I go, me as the consumer, the smart thing to do it would be to send it to the person who actually owns the accounts so they can make that decision. If you're letting strangers or anybody make that decision for me, then what's the use of the password that you gave me? What's the use of the system that you've put in place that's supposed to protect me? So I'm saying that story to kind of illustrate that a lot of times when we are faced with this injustice that we experience, a lot of times the reaction is from, I could have called in and yelled and screamed and all this sort of stuff, and they would have been like, it's charges, whatever, right? Ultimately, they saw my reasoning within it and removed a lot of the charges.
Good.
Right? But this is where I think a lot of times, whether across the board, whether it's the Muslim agenda or the Aboriginal agenda or the Black agenda, the thought process behind addressing the situation within the context of the framework of whatever the laws are that are on the books at that point. In the U.S., it's a completely different story to some degree because a lot of the laws and the system that's set up there was set up specifically. And, it blows my mind that a lot of things that come out to light that are very evident, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's just how it is. Here in Canada, I think we have more of an authority to push the agenda from a logical standpoint.
We do, but it all starts with us.
Yes, it does.
That's the thing, that it definitely all starts with us. And if how can I say, we don't need to be 100% together, as I said earlier, but we need to start having conversations with each other and saying, okay, what can we do? We don't need to agree on everything, but at least I think one of the difficulties is that too much today in our society, and I'm not just talking about blacks, but we look at what's different instead of what's the same.
Yes.
And when you start off a relationship, whether it's loving, friendship, business, based on differences, it's just going to be that much more difficult to achieve anything together. So I think that, and that's one of the crazy things through the show. A lot of the people that are on my show are Black American men, and realize that when I do my show, 95% of the people that come on the show I've never physically met and probably never will, but we bond with each other, we call each other, we watch each other's backs.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I have some more stable friendships with people I've never physically met than people who are in this community. And that's a whole other discussion about I'm saying that word, community, the Black Canadian environment, because there's some real concerns I have about the Black Canadian environment. Some real big concerns.
What are some of those?
Oh, I knew you were going to. That's a lie.
That's a good segue.
Yeah, good segue. I think someone that you and I both know, I won't mention their name, he said, we had a very interesting conversation a little while back saying that, you know what, especially in the Black Toronto environment, he says that many Black Torontonians need to see how Blacks in the Maritimes, Blacks in Nova Scotia get things done, or are more united as a people than Black Torontonians. I feel that a lot with the Black Toronto community, and you can come at me if you want on this, anyone. I think there's a lot of class issues within that community.
So this is where I go. I think to some degree, I say this goes back to more of a class issue than a black issue.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you, the perception is when you make a certain amount of money, then somehow you're sort of immune from most of this stuff. It might happen to you, but it might happen to you less than the kid walking down the street in a hoodie.
Right.
You know, you're more, your money sort of shelters you a little bit more from it. You know, when we look at the black community within Nova Scotia or some other parts of the country, they have such a long history in those environments.
Agreed.
That they can pull from and they can draw strength from.
But there's a concern right there. We need to know our history. Right? We read, like, we just finished Black History Month, and we need to know some of our history, whether it's in Canada.
So the question is this, though: what the heck is like when I look at me, and I had this conversation yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. Anyways, I had this conversation recently where it was like I was talking to somebody, and she was like, you know what, I want to get my do one of those DNA breakdown things,
sure,
right?
Sure,
because. She's mixed, and I'm mixed too. And I said, you know, I've been thinking about doing that too. But then, okay, so when it comes back and I see that I've got all these parts of me from all over the world, how do I identify? Like, even for me to say I'm, you know, call myself an African Canadian or African American or African whatever. Well, really, what connection to Africa do I really have aside from my color?
Okay.
Right? My history that I know of through Caribbean, I was born in Jamaica, my Jamaican history or my Jamaican heritage, now I live in Canada and my kids are born here and they have Jamaican ancestry, yes, but they're born here. So it's kind of a big soup, right?
I hear you that, but I respect what you did about finding out, but you know what? The easiest way to start finding about your history, ask some people in your family. Because those people, like, I'm blessed, my father's still alive. So I'm getting the history of the family through him. He lived it, he's seen it, etc. After he passes away, it's going to be real difficult for me to find out about the family history. I think I know what impact it's made on me because I get a better sense of, like, his mother, my grandmother on his side, she had blue eyes. Like, and I remember when she was living up here with us, she'd always look up at me and go, wow, look at these blue eyes. And she told me about how her father was white and this and that. And I feel it's very passionate that we need to find out our foundation before we can create an empire.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, and it totally makes sense to me in terms of being able to find that history, but it's being able to also... our history is so fractured.
But we need to know the truth.
And so, but what do we... So, okay, you do one of those DNA tests, and it comes back and it says, you know, you have some European or you might have some African. Okay, what is African? Which part of Africa? You know, Africa. We often refer to Africa as Africa, but it's like what, a gazillion countries in Africa.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
absolutely.
For me to be able to look at what my history is, and then try to decipher that code, and to be able to, some people might look at it and say, you know what, you're Canadian, man. Just accept the fact you're Canadian.
I'm going to interrupt you there. Don't let people define you. You define you.
I hear you.
I hear you. Yeah.
I'm just saying, though, that being able to, and then again, in our culture, in our society today, there's not a lot. And I would say more so in the U.S. than it is here in Canada, because Canada, obviously, we're a little bit more inclusive in terms of telling people to keep their
externally,
keep their culture and their identity, and you know, the Canadian culture is more of a diversity of cultures as opposed to just one. In the U.S., you know, it's about you're America now America first. And America first.
Yes,
you know, very much
make America great again. Remember that.
It's very much about that.
Remember, it's unscripted. Go on.
true.
Yeah, there you go.
This is true. You totally made me lose my train of
You were talking about diversity being more allowed in Canada with your communities, etc. versus America.
Would it not be simpler? And I'll ask the people out there listening as well. If you've got a comment, by all means, share it with us.
Please do.
But okay, so the diversity that we embrace within Canada, which I would say is more in the urban areas than it is externally.
Sure.
Mind you, there are some external areas that that embrace the diversity as well, even more so nowadays. But this diversity that we embrace in Canada that makes Canada unique. I'm not saying it's perfect.
No,
right?
Absolutely.
But it's unique on the planet in terms of, because Canada's a young country. It's also a very large country with a small population, and the population is made up predominantly of immigrants. Actually, everybody in North America is an immigrant one time or another.
There we go.
Our ability to be able to find ways to build those bridges and walk along those common lines that we have with one another. Have you, over the years that you've been doing these conversations, have you seen that get better?
Yes, to a certain extent. I've had more and more people who are not black come on my conversation, express their concerns of, we need to work together. We've got to. There's one or two people that listen to my shows who are not black, and they've referred to it. I'm so glad that you're doing this because I get educated on what's really going on in black people's minds and hearts. Mm-hmm. So I see it happening to a certain extent, but if you want to take a look at what's going on in the United States right now, it's everyone just don't know what to do. And I'm talking about people who I've had on the show who I keep it, they're making income like this, to people who are making income like this. Mm-hmm. There's a general fear, concern, what's going to happen. I've had black men on my show from the States says I didn't vote because I didn't want to vote for either person. Mm-hmm. So they're that transparent. Mm-hmm. So right now, I think in the United States, and again, we can't deflect ourselves on what's going on in the U.S. And I say to people, be careful because Kevin O'Leary is running for the PC party, yes. and he's going to probably win the PC party nomination. And don't be surprised when he runs for prime minister. And I'm saying this here right now, people are not thinking about it, but many years ago,
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's very, very clear to me.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. The one saving grace maybe out of this whole thing is his lack of French.
Yes,
and,
but
I don't think he can win without Quebec.
Yeah, but the thing is, and I think this is one of the things that people didn't realize in the American presidential election. When someone goes behind that curtain, you don't know what they're doing. Right?
This is true.
The polls may say one thing, mm-hmm. but that's a poll. That ain't the ballot box.
Well, no, I'm not talking from a polling standpoint. This is just my own. It's my theology today, right?
Yeah, no, but
my own personal
Kevin O'Leary thing. Yeah. People are not taking that
seriously. I don't think they are taking him seriously enough. But I would say that's the biggest hurdle that he has to. He would have to spend the next 2 years really. Getting up to par with that, which is possible, right?
Absolutely,
it's totally possible.
Absolutely.
That would be scary.
It'd certainly be interesting.
It would definitely be scary. Okay, so we've been talking a whole lot here, but how do people find you? Like, if they want to check out your blog, if they want to listen to some of your stuff,
the website address is www.the.drvibeshow.com. I'm Googleicious, as one of my online posse would say. I'm Googleicious. So all you got to do is, if you type into Google or your search engine, the_dr_SHOW, you'll get more. You'll see me on web, Instagram, Good Men Project, all over the place. So it's one of those things. So, and you'll get on the site and get 1,500 conversations. Practice going, where does man get? That's why he's bald.
That's
why he
it's
got
okay.
no hair.
I'm you know, the other day, I said, you know,
I love doing this.
I'm gonna let my hair grow a little bit because I haven't seen my hair in a while. You know,
I haven't seen
it in a while, so I'm gonna let it grow.
Where'd it go?
I'm gonna let it grow because I'm usually keeping it low.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm gonna let it grow for a little bit and just to see, you know, what it comes out, what it looks like when it comes out.
Okay.
Right? So it started growing in, and I'm like, so I started looking. I'm like, it's not so bad. My hairline's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Not as clean as mine.
No, it's true. But then I realized, you know, this section over here was not quite as healthy looking as some other parts of it, and I thought, you know, I could be that guy.
Oh my!
You know the guy, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm thinking I could be that guy and just. But so my son, my 13-year-old looks at me and goes, so Dad, when are you going to cut your hair? I was like, okay, it's time to cut my hair.
There you go. There you go.
I'm like, okay.
All right.
I was like, all right, buddy, I'll be back.
Man, time is flying here. Like, it's just like, boom.
I know, we're getting old.
No, we're getting good.
We
are good.
That's true, too.
We are good. We are good.
You're, in all the time that you've been doing this.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we run into a conversation with someone that really kind of helps to reassure us of our faith in humanity.
The why.
Yeah, yes.
The why conversation.
Because sometimes, you know, when you listen to the news and you look at everything that's going on, it's just like we're all going to hell in a handbasket real quick.
Yeah.
And that basket's full.
Yeah.
But then we encounter somebody or a conversation that we have, and you're like, okay, maybe it's not as bad as I was thinking it was.
Okay.
Have you had that moment?
I have them almost every time I do a conversation because people will say to me after, wow, I've never mentioned that before. Or, wow, you made me feel so comfortable. Or, wow, you know, and if you want something specific, quick thing that comes to my head, the first time I had someone on my show that I did not know who they were.
Yeah.
And this is back in the day when I used to travel to do interviews. I don't do that much anymore, the conversations. And went over to his house. He lives somewhat close here. No, he's actually moved up to Muskoka now. And I knocked at his door, opens the door up, and he says, come on in. This gentleman at the time was in his 50s. He was raised in Runnymede area.
Yeah.
When he was growing up, let me cycle back. His mother was black. His father was white, Italian.
Okay, yeah.
So he grew up in the 1950s in Runnymede area.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Father, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right there. Right. So I'm sitting down. We're sitting at his kitchen table.
Yeah.
Never met this man before. He begins sharing, saying, "Look, when I was growing up, I couldn't go more than a 3-block circumference from my house, or I'd get beat up." So I asked him, "So when you graduated from high school, what did you do?" He says, "Well, my father was in the trade, so I became in the trades." I said, "Let me ask you, were you the first black man in your union?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "How long were you the only black man in your union?" 25 years.
Wow.
I'm going, how did you survive?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I mean about the history part, just asking people to share their story. And you're saying he'll probably never be in any books or any television program, but you see someone who's lived through that. But the most emotional moment was, tell me about your mom.
Yeah.
He began to cry to the point we had to stop the conversation for a few minutes because it was so emotional for him because, hardly anyone ever asked me about my mother, and I'm so happy that I get a chance to share about my mother. And then when I left, he said, you got to do 2 things, Dr. Vibe. A, you got to come back. I got to cook you a pasta dinner. And B, I want you to write my life story.
Nice.
And I just went, wow. When he has his 8th degree black belt. And he was a...
You better do a good job writing his life story.
He's going to chop me down, right? And the thing is, I'll be totally transparent, and that's an important thing I want to share with the listeners and the viewers, especially if you do things like myself and Patrick do, teach through transparency. People want it these days. They want the real story. So they want to see you, not when you're high, they do, but they also want to know you experience some lows because that's life.
No alternative facts.
Oh, sorry, Kelly. Sorry, Kellyanne. Yes,
I wasn't going to say the name, man.
Maybe you'll grow out your hair and get Kellyanne. This is Kellyanne Canada style in the future. There we go.
No alternative facts,
no
man.
alternative facts.
No alternative facts.
But yeah, but that there's just so many of them that just. But that was the first time I had someone on the conversation who I never knew before. And actually, another funny fact. And I'll make this right quick because I know we're running down on time. Yeah. I do most of my conversations online now, but the funny story is how that started. And many years ago, and Patrick can relate to this, there was a program on City Much Music called Soul in the City with Michael Williams.
Michael Williams. What's up, Michael? Yes, I have not forgotten about you.
Okay,
Mike.
well, I saw him a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we've been talking lately.
Yeah, and I sent him an email, but I also got to follow up with a phone number. That's another conversation, how you get these people on your conversation. And he said back then, he says, look, well, I live in Hamilton, so if you want to come out and sit down with me, you got to come out to Hamilton. I go, I'm going to go to Hamilton. I bet you halfway through he's going to say something came up. I said, I'm not driving all the way out to Hamilton to find that out. So I said, no, got to find a way to do these over the phone. And from then it just allowed me to have global reach. And a few weeks ago I had a chance to run into Michael at the Ontario Black History Awards kickoff brunch. And we chatted for like 2 hours.
Wow. And
he said, you got to help me. I said, well, geez, man, you kicked me away from Hamilton, but just joking away. But big kudos to Mike. That's another person that's important in Canadian history, Black Canadian history, or just Black history. Period. His program was a groundbreaking program. A lot of people know about Master T. Yeah. But if you really know, before Master T, there was Mike Williams who. I don't know if he's put out a book. He needs to put out a book about his experiences. Yeah.
Okay, we got like 10 minutes or so left, and I do want to touch on. I'm sure you've discussed this topic a fair bit as well. As
you never know.
Is Black men's health.
Oh wow! Because the guy drops this with 10 minutes left. See ya. There's
Ed's leaving. There's 10 minutes left.
Okay, sorry.
So,
all right.
This is kind of somewhat of a touchy subject, right? Because there are a lot
I don't think it is.
Well, there are a lot of guys out there who, and I get, I can only speak the Black experience because that's kind of what I know. But there are a lot of guys who afraid of doctors, who don't want to go to doctors.
Men are generally
every time they go to the doctor, it's bad news, so they don't want to go to the doctor.
Right.
There's just this thought out
phobia.
there.
Stigma.
Yeah, phobia. That's the word I'm looking for. About you've done this before, haven't you?
Once in a while. Your training is. Look at the results of your training. Your mentorship. Oh my gosh. Learnable, teachable, duplicatable. POM is LTD.
There you go.
And not the group either. Go on. He didn't expect me to be like rapid fire back on the day.
It's all good, man. We're not scripted.
We're just doing a conversation. Yeah.
So when we look at things like heart disease, hypertension, all these cancer
challenges,
prostate exams and all this sort of stuff. There is a lot of fear and anxiety around men's health.
Absolutely.
Within how long that you've been doing this, do you think that this has shifted? This has changed? Is there more?
Not big amount. But for me personally, I can only use myself as a testimonial. First of all, I have the same doctor as my dad.
Okay.
And I did that purposely because he's had a lot of challenges like prostate cancer. He had quadruple bypass. Here's a funny story. His older brother had a 7 bypass and is still alive.
7?
Damn. Right?
Okay.
All that sort of stuff. So for me, it's critical. And maybe call me narcissistic. I go to my doctor every 3 months. Because that's how much I value my health. And having the same doctor as my dad, he can look out for any of those hereditary stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I will say to Black men out there, there's someone, forget about someone else that loves you out there. Do you love yourself? Do you, on average, men don't live as long as women do. And if you don't think that's true, whenever you go to your family get-togethers, check out how many older Black men there are compared to older Black women there.
Well, it's not just black.
Yeah, but it's central.
Across the board, women
tend
tend
to
to
black men.
Yeah, women tend to live.
But, so I'm saying,
I think it's because they strangle us.
or machetes. But but I'm not just talking about a physical health, but I think emotional and mental health. One of the issues, or one of the challenges that has really become in my face over the years I've done conversations is the elephant in the room about black mental health challenges. And ladies are much better at doing this than men, but believe me, there are severe challenges with many men out there, or if you're a lady, you know that there's a gentleman out there that's having a mental health challenge. And the sad thing is, for some men out there, the easiest emotion is anger. And we need to prevent that, or at least check it, because there's a lot of anger out there, and in society today, you notice a lot of people are aggressive.
Well, everybody, it's like I made this statement the other day, and somebody was confused by it. But you know what a powder keg is, right?
Yep.
So it's like a powder keg, just waiting for that spark to go off. Like there's so many things. Everywhere in life, there's so much stress. You go to work, there's stress. You're spending so much time in traffic to get to work. By the time you get to work, you're stressed. By the time you get home through trafficking, and you're stressed. When you get home, there's the bills and everything that's waiting for you. Once you open your mailbox, is stress. Everywhere you go, there's so much stress, and that stress has to go somewhere. If you're not in the gym 10 hours a day working it off, right.
And sometimes that doesn't help either.
That stress has to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so some guys explode in their home. Some women explode in their home.
Absolutely.
There's not a lot. I don't think there's enough conversation about that part.
I've had those. I've had men on my show who have been sexually abused by women. Mm-hmm. That's a serious conversation.
And in our society,
I'm sorry to cut you.
That's a whole other.
Yeah, that's content. I'm just.
We don't have enough time for that, man. Why are you bringing that up?
Or Patrick can bring it out. We can address that one too. But I'm just giving them free content here.
But yeah, the psychological trauma that we go through on a daily basis, unless there's a good foundation somewhere to help to find outlets to balance that, then something's got to give.
Of course.
Something's got to be given. And whether it's depression or abuse or whatever it ends up looking like, there's not enough conversation as well as action to be able to...
Well, he's just that way.
Yeah.
That line. Oh, he's just like that.
And it's easy to write it off because, again, culturally, you'd be seen as weak if you're asking for help.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you,
Do you need help? Do you need help, Ed?
Always.
Do you need help?
You know what I tell people? I didn't come here. It took two people for me to get here, so why am I trying to do it alone?
That's a good way to look at it.
That's the way you got here, unless you were watch the Flintstones and watch the Stork or whatever, right? But
they don't deliver anymore.
Exactly, right? So I look at it that way, but I will say this to the men and those who love them out there. Even strong men struggle. And I'll let you just marinate on that. Strong men struggle. But men, we all, again, here's another POM conversation on iLIVE.
I got to bring you back so we can continue this.
I would love to come back because I've been blessed to have a lot of conversations on these topics, especially through my collaboration with the Good Men Project. There's wide conversations. Like we had, there's a gentleman from Vancouver that was on the other day. We did a subject called "Are You Love Able?" Not lovable, able.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I understand you.
Yeah. So getting back to the men and emotional issues, and again, people can come at me. It's not easy being a man, and I think today it's even more challenging to be a man because a lot of men are getting images of what they should be and what they can be. Yeah. And I'll lose this too. Generally, in a man's life, emotionally and physically, especially emotionally, there's two pivot points. There are always many more. Sorry, Mike. Road stand. When a young man gets out of university or college, he's not a boy anymore, but he's not a man.
Yeah.
And then you get your men, the midlife crisis guys who get to 40, 50 years old. They're not old, but they're not a young guy anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot of men, we're not good when things are unbalanced. We like things 1 + 2, 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
If it doesn't equal 2, we're in trouble. So that's the things that and with the changing world, what's a man, definition of a man, it's been all over the place. And hypermasculinity, that's all. I did a whole year series on hypermasculinity.
Not to mention even, turn on pretty much almost any show on TV.
Yep.
Where there's a family unit. More than likely, the guy is portrayed as an idiot. There's not a lot of expectation. Yeah. And there's very few scenarios where you see the male figure and he's a reasonable guy.
Just average
so
guy, yeah.
There's a lot that's being tossed at us, and
gosh.
we got 4 minutes left, so we can't even talk about media
Cut.
and all the rest of that other stuff. But just to wrap up the whole health thing, if you're a guy and you're out there and you haven't seen the doctor in a while, I think we're echoing each other here in that you need to get your butt off.
Absolutely.
Get your ass off the chair and go see your doctor.
Because for most men, there's someone counting on you.
Yeah.
Whether you have kids, whether you're married, whether you're not married, if you don't have kids, there's someone out there that is counting on you.
I real quick, because we're almost out of time here. And that, I was watching a movie the other day, and there was a line in the movie that I thought was brilliant. And there's so many scenarios that people are sick, and they don't tell their family. And they end up, dying, and their family members are like, what the hell? What's going on? And the line in the movie was, you're dying. And like, yeah, but you're not dying well. You're not dying well. You whatever the issue is that you've got that's killing you, okay, it's killing you, but you're not dying well, meaning that you're not giving your family the opportunity to be able to say goodbye, for them to be able to close that door with you while they still have the chance to, as opposed to you closing that door for them. And that really hit me, and it's thinking, if I'm not looking after myself, seeing my doctor, eating right, all these different things, and something goes wrong with me, and I'm not bringing them into that conversation, then I'm doing them a disservice.
And you're also setting up you being a father, especially your kids, their image of a man is coming through you first.
Yeah.
And that could lead into successive behaviors along the line where they perceive what a man should be, good or bad. It will come through you.
I think we got like 1 minute left, but I can't even see the screen. It just went blank on me.
It's okay.
As soon as you kicked in. But again, quickly, how can people reach you?
Easiest way, drvibeshow.com. I'm going to do quick shout outs. Really excited. You want to check, I'm a crowd producer for one of the hottest shows that's coming up called The Never Settle Show, April 5th. Go check neversettletv.com. Shout out to Dr. Vibe's allies, which is Clive Henry in England, Omri Morris in Oakland, Victor Unlimited in Memphis, Tennessee, and Jonathan O'Shaw in Brampton.
Jonathan, what's up, bro?
Yeah, big shout out to Neek and the family. Big shout out to my family. Big shout out to God. And big shout out to POM, who's going to rock the house. Please support him. His heart, I've known his heart for a long time. And you know something? Even though he's gone through some stuff, he still believes in the environment. We're going to say community, the black environment. And a big shout out. Thanks very much, iLive Radio. I have become a fan, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your Sunday
one
afternoon.
Other quick thing. Certain things okay, quick. I'm a certified empowerment coach, so if you want a free 30-minute complimentary session, check me out, Dr. Vibe Show, 30-minute free complimentary 30-minute session. It's 3:00. Bye.
Enjoy your Sunday afternoon, everyone.
Enjoy yourself.
From the bottom of my heart, I'm telling you to play, baby. I saw that something in your eyes, comes to no surprise that you turned me